Elon Musk walks into Secret Service headquarters. What he finds shocks everyone. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Elon Musk had seen his fair share of strange occurrences, from launching rockets into orbit to pushing the boundaries of artificial intelligence. His life often felt like science fiction, but nothing could have prepared him for the letter that arrived that morning. It was delivered by hand, a rare occurrence in a world dominated by digital communication. The courier, a stone-faced man in a sharply tailored black suit, offered no greeting, no small talk, just a slight nod as he handed over the envelope before turning on his heel and disappearing as swiftly as he had arrived. Musk turned the envelope over in his hands, noting its lack of a return address. The paper had an oddly smooth texture, almost synthetic. Peeling it open, he found a single sheet inside. The message was stark and direct. Your presence is required at Secret Service headquarters. Orders, urgent. There was no signature, no official seal, nothing to indicate who had sent it. Yet, despite its cryptic nature, Musk knew better than to ignore something like this. His interactions with governments had always been complex, sometimes adversarial, sometimes collaborative, but they had never been this enigmatic. Still, curiosity had always been his greatest motivator. Within the hour, he was in his Tesla, en route to the Secret Service HQ in Washington, D.C. The invitation, if it could be called that, had no instructions about security clearance, escorts, or meeting details. It was as if they expected him to simply walk in. Upon arrival, the usual bureaucratic obstacles were conspicuously absent. No ID checks, no metal detectors, no questions. The guards at the entrance barely looked at him as they motioned him forward. It was eerie, unsettling. The last time he had been in a government facility, security had been meticulous, painstaking. Even today, it was as if they had been waiting for him. A silent agent, dressed in the same sterile black suit as the courier, guided him down a long, dimly lit corridor. The air smelled of polished steel and something else, something Musk couldn't quite place. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until even the hum of background machinery faded. Finally, they reached a large, nondescript door. The agent swiped an access card through the lock, and the door slid open with a whisper of compressed air. Inside, Musk found himself in a room that looked nothing like the high-tech government offices he had expected. The walls were lined with file cabinets, their drawers neatly labeled with names, numbers, and years. In the center of the room, a long metal table stood under the glow of fluorescent lights. On it lay a single, thick folder. His name was stamped on the cover in bold, black letters, Elon Musk. His heart pounded. He was used to classified information. Governments kept tabs on him, on all influential figures. But this felt different. The folder wasn't just a collection of reports on his activities. It was old, far older than it should have been. The paper had that aged, yellowish tinge, the ink slightly faded, as if it had been written decades ago. His pulse quickened as he flipped open the first page. It was a biography, his biography. Every major event in his life was meticulously documented, with timestamps that predated the events themselves. His childhood in South Africa, his move to Canada, his first startup, Zip2, the founding of SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink. The deeper he read, the more his stomach twisted. Every milestone, every publicized moment was there, but so were things no one else should have known. Private conversations, unrecorded decisions, fleeting thoughts that had never been spoken aloud. His hands clenched around the folder. This wasn't surveillance. It was prophecy. Then, his eyes landed on the final entry. Elon Musk will disappear in 48 hours. The words seemed to pulse on the page, their meaning sinking into his bones like ice. He barely noticed when the door behind him clicked shut. "Mr. Musk," a voice said, "we need to talk." Musk's breath came slow and measured, but his pulse raced beneath his skin. He lifted his gaze from the chilling words, "Elon Musk will disappear in 48 hours." It wasn't just a prediction. It was a statement of certainty, like an immutable law of physics. He swallowed hard and turned his attention to the man standing in the doorway. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in the same dark suit as the other agents who had guided him here. But there was something different about him, an air of authority, of urgency. His neatly cropped black hair and piercing gray eyes gave him the look of a man who had seen too much. "Mr. Musk," the man repeated, stepping forward. "I'm Agent Langley. You need to listen very carefully." Musk exhaled, trying to steady himself. "I assume you have an explanation for this." He gestured to the open file in front of him. "Because either this is an elaborate joke, or you people have figured out time travel." Langley didn't smile. Instead, he walked toward the table and pulled out a chair across from Musk. "Neither," he said, tapping the file. "This document is not something we wrote. It appeared." Musk frowned. "Appeared?" Langley's expression darkened. "The government has been in possession of files like this for a long time. They arrive without warning, no courier, no delivery logs, no traceable origin. But every single one of them has one thing in common. They predict the future with absolute accuracy." Musk let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're telling me that somewhere, someone or something is sending you files detailing the future, and no one knows how or why?" Langley's lips pressed into a thin line. "Correct." The weight of those words settled over Musk like a lead blanket. He looked down at the file again, flipping back through the pages. He skimmed entries about his past, his childhood in Pretoria, the early days of PayPal, the moment he decided to start SpaceX. Each moment was described with eerie precision, as though someone had been watching from the shadows his entire life. And then, there were things that no living soul should have known. Private thoughts, decisions he had made alone, conversations that had never been recorded. His fingers tightened around the pages. "Who else has gotten one of these?" Langley hesitated before answering. "There have been a handful over the years. Presidents, scientists, inventors, visionaries. The last recipient was Steve Jobs." Musk's heart skipped a beat. "Steve Jobs? You're saying?" Langley nodded. The file predicted his cancer, his decline, his death. And just like all the others, there was a final entry stating exactly when he would disappear. Musk's mind raced. If what Langley was saying was true, then every person who had ever received a file like this had met an inevitable end. The file wasn't just a warning. It was a death sentence. He forced himself to breathe. So what happened to the others? Did they all just drop dead? Langley's jaw tightened. "No, that's the thing, they didn't die. They vanished." Musk blinked. Vanished? No body, no trace, no explanation. Langley leaned forward. Every single one of them was wiped from existence without a clue left behind. Families, businesses, governments. No one could explain it. Langley leaned forward. "And now, Mr. Musk, you have 48 hours before it happens to you." The room suddenly felt smaller, as though the walls were closing in. Musk had never been one to believe in fate. He was a man of science, of logic. But this was something else entirely. He straightened in his chair, forcing his mind to focus. "And what, exactly, does your government want me to do with this information?" Langley's expression was unreadable. "We want to stop it." Musk arched an eyebrow. "You just said no one has ever escaped this. So what makes you think I'll be any different?" Langley exhaled. "Because you're Elon Musk. If anyone can find a way out of this, it's you." Musk let the weight of that statement sink in. For the first time in his life, he was facing an enemy he couldn't understand, a force that defied the very nature of causality. But one thing was certain. If the file was right, he had less than 48 hours to figure out how to change his fate, and he had no intention of going quietly. Musk leaned back in his chair, his mind reeling. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed softly, the only sound in the stark room, as the weight of Langley's words settled around him. A file that predicted the future, a roster of visionaries who had all vanished without a trace, a countdown ticking toward his own disappearance. For the first time in years, he felt the unfamiliar grip of fear clawing at his chest. He had spent his life conquering the impossible, turning science fiction into reality. But this was something entirely different. He placed his hands flat on the table, forcing himself to focus. "So, You're telling me that these files predate any administration, any intelligence agency, that they appear out of nowhere, completely accurate, and that no one understands why? Langley nodded. That's right. Musk scoffed. And no one has tried to stop them? Langley exhaled, folding his hands together. Every government that's ever gotten their hands on these files has tried. We've thrown our best minds at the problem. Cryptologists, physicists, AI experts. We've analyzed the paper, the ink, the method of delivery. We've even tested quantum mechanics theories to see if they originate from another point in time or space. Langley hesitated, then said, "Nothing. No logical explanation, no scientific pattern. The files exist in defiance of every natural law we know." Musk tapped a finger on the open file in front of him. "Then you're thinking too small." Langley narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Musk gestured at the pages. "You've been looking for an external source who's sending them, how they're getting here. But what if the answer isn't in where they come from?" He paused, then leaned forward. "What if the answer is why they're never wrong?" Langley studied him for a moment. "Go on." Musk's mind worked quickly, piecing together possibilities. "You said every name in these files disappears exactly when it says they will, right?" Langley nodded. "And no one, not one person, has ever escaped it." Another nod. "Then that means these files aren't predicting the future. They're causing it." Langley's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, an almost imperceptible tightening, as if Musk had just verbalized a suspicion the government had long feared. "That's a dangerous theory, Mr. Musk," Langley said quietly. Musk held his gaze. "You've already considered it, haven't you?" Langley hesitated, then nodded once, off the record. "Yes, we have." Musk sat back. "That's why no one has ever beaten this. Everyone who gets a file starts behaving differently the moment they read it. They try to fight it, or they panic, or they disappear while searching for answers. But it's not just foretelling their fate. It's locking them into it." Langley exhaled. "That's one possibility." Musk drummed his fingers on the table. "So, if we assume the files dictate reality, not just predict it, then all I have to do is prove it wrong." Langley frowned. "Easier said than done." Musk smirked. "You underestimate me." Langley gave a dry chuckle. "I don't think I do." He leaned forward. "Listen to me, Musk. If you're right, then you have less than 48 hours to do the impossible, to change an event that so far has been 100% inevitable. Every person before you, from Oppenheimer to Jobs, has failed." Musk tilted his head. "Wait, did you just say Oppenheimer?" Langley nodded. "Yes, he was one of the first files on record." Musk felt a chill crawl up his spine. The father of the atomic bomb, the man who had famously quoted the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." If he had received one of these files, what did that mean? Had his fate been decided the moment he unlocked nuclear power? Musk stared at the file before him. He was no stranger to pushing humanity forward, but this was something else. The Watchers, whoever or whatever they were, had marked him. Langley stood. "We have a safe house prepared for you. If you agree, we'll move you there immediately. We'll have our best security detail, advanced counter-surveillance." Musk held up a hand. "No." Langley frowned. "No." Musk's voice was steel. "I'm not going into hiding." Langley sighed. "Musk, we don't have time for heroics." Musk said, "This isn't heroics. It's strategy." He tapped the file again. "If the pattern holds, everyone who disappears follows the path this thing sets. So we don't follow the path." Langley stared at him. "You're suggesting we break the loop." Musk smiled. "Exactly." A long silence stretched between them, then Langley nodded slowly. "All right." Musk stood from his chair, his mind already racing through possibilities. If the files weren't predicting the future but dictating it, then his only option was to break free from their script. The problem was, how? Langley checked his watch. 47 hours and 36 minutes. He said grimly, "The countdown started the moment you opened that file." Musk exhaled through his nose. Then we better move fast. Langley gestured toward the door. I have a team ready to escort you to a secure facility. If we control the environment, we control the outcome. Musk shook his head. No, that's exactly what the file expects me to do. Langley frowned. You don't even know what it expects. Musk tapped the open folder. The file isn't about surprises. It's about inevitability. It's written as if it already knows what I'm going to do. So, if we follow the logical path, security teams, safe houses, counter-surveillance, we'll just be playing into its hands. Langley ran a hand over his face, clearly frustrated. Then what do you suggest? Sitting here and waiting? Musk smirked. Of course not. He picked up the folder and flipped through the pages. I need to know everything you have on these files, every case, every pattern, every missing person. I need data, not just theories. Langley hesitated, then nodded. Follow me. They exited the dimly lit briefing room, walking through a series of secured hallways. The deeper they went, the more restricted the access points became. Retinal scans, biometric locks, high-clearance checkpoints. Musk had been inside top government facilities before, but this level of security was beyond anything he had seen. Finally, Langley led him into a vault-like room where dozens of metal filing cabinets stood in neat rows. No computers, no digital records. Everything was on paper. Langley gestured to the cabinets. This is every known file we've received over the last century. Musk raised an eyebrow. Paper files, no digital copies? Langley shook his head. We learned the hard way that these files don't react well to digitalization. Musk paused. What do you mean? Langley hesitated. The last time we tried to upload the data to a secure system, the servers wiped themselves. Every trace of the files was erased within seconds, along with any other records stored on those servers. We lost nearly a decade of intelligence reports. Musk stared at him. So, something is actively protecting these files from being analyzed. Langley exhaled. We don't know what is protecting them, but yes. Musk rubbed his chin. The more he learned, the deeper the mystery grew. If these files were beyond human technology, then the entity behind them was either unfathomably advanced or something else entirely. All right, Musk said, rolling up his sleeves. Let's find a pattern. He and Langley spent the next 2 hours combing through the files, stacking cases by similarities. Disappearances of influential figures, timeline accuracy of predictions, methods of retrieval. Pattern began to emerge. Look at this, Musk said, pointing to a cluster of files. Oppenheimer, Turing, Tesla, Jobs, and Nye. Langley peered over his shoulder. All visionaries, Musk nodded. Not just visionaries, disruptors. Every single person on this list didn't just innovate. They changed the trajectory of humanity itself. Langley's brow furrowed. So what are you saying? That whoever's behind these files is removing disruptive elements from history. Musk set the file down. That's exactly what I'm saying. Langley exhaled. But why? To maintain control. Musk's mind raced. Maybe, or maybe it's something bigger. Maybe we're being course-corrected. Langley's face darkened. To what end? Musk tapped the table. That's what we need to figure out, and fast. Langley checked his watch again. 46 hours. Musk looked at the rows of files. A plan was forming in his mind, one that went against every security protocol and government strategy. If he wanted to survive, he couldn't run. He had to hack the system, and he knew exactly where to start. Get me access to a private lab, Musk said. No government oversight, no surveillance. If we can't analyze the files digitally, then we need to find another way. Langley hesitated. Musk, you're asking me to break 100 different classified protocols. Musk smirked. And you're asking me to cheat death. I'd say we're even. Langley sighed but nodded. I hope you know what you're doing. Musk's smile faded. So do I. Because if he was right, then whoever controlled these files controlled the fate of humanity itself, and he was running out of time. The lab Langley secured for Musk was buried deep within an unmarked government facility on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. It wasn't one of Musk's sleek, state-of-the-art research centers. Instead, it was a sterile, windowless bunker lined with reinforced walls and shielded from outside signals. Whatever they were dealing with, they needed total control over the environment. Musk stood in the center of the lab, staring at the stack of classified files piled on a metal table. He exhaled sharply. 44 hours left. Langley paced behind him, arms crossed. "You said you had an idea. Let's hear it." Musk picked up the file with his name on it, running his fingers over the aged paper. These documents exist outside of digital manipulation, right? They can't be uploaded, copied, or analyzed by conventional technology. But that doesn't mean they can't be read by something smarter than us. Langley frowned. "What are you getting at?" Musk smirked. "Aye." Langley stiffened. "Absolutely not. We already told you what happened when we tried digitizing them." Musk shook his head. "I'm not talking about basic digitization. I'm talking about using an air-gapped AI model. One that isn't connected to any network, completely isolated with no ability to transmit data externally. If these files follow some kind of pattern, an AI can detect it faster than we can." Langley still looked wary. "And what if the files react? What if whatever's behind them erases everything the moment the AI tries to process them?" Musk grinned. "That's why we don't give it the whole file. We feed it fragments, bits and pieces from different cases. We don't look for direct answers. We look for connections." Langley hesitated, then sighed. "Fine, but if this goes sideways, I'm pulling the plug." Musk nodded. "Fair enough." They got to work immediately. Musk requested a customized AI system built with Tesla's Dojo supercomputers, completely disconnected from any external access. The government team brought in the most powerful offline processing system they had, stacking high-speed quantum processors within the shielded lab. The next few hours were a blur of data entry. Musk and Langley carefully transcribed select portions of different files, feeding them into the AI in a way that wouldn't trigger a full system wipe. The AI, nicknamed Oracle, began running probability analysis almost instantly. Musk sat at the monitors, heart pounding. The AI processed the text at lightning speed, searching for anomalies, patterns, anything that might explain the file's origins. Lines of code flickered across the screen. "New pattern detected." Musk leaned in. "What do we have?" Langley read over the results, his face darkening. "The files don't just predict disappearances. They follow an exact mathematical sequence." Musk frowned. "What kind of sequence?" Langley adjusted the parameters. The AI recalculated, displaying a visual graph, a spiraling equation that looked eerily familiar. Musk's stomach dropped. "That's a Fibonacci sequence." Langley's brow furrowed. "What does that mean?" Musk rubbed his temples. "It means the disappearances aren't random. They follow a perfect natural progression. Every disappearance is spaced according to a precise numerical pattern." Langley's face paled. "So this isn't just someone picking targets. It's programmed." Musk exhaled. "And that means someone or something is running an experiment." Langley ran a hand over his face. "Jesus." Musk turned back to the AI, his mind racing. "If it's an experiment, then there has to be a control variable, a constant that doesn't change." He typed in new instructions, directing Oracle to search for any repeating elements that persisted across every recorded disappearance. The AI processed the request for several agonizing minutes. Then at last, one constant found. A single word appeared on the screen. "Watcher." Musk's breath caught in his throat. "Watcher." Langley's expression hardened. "We've seen that word before. Every case file includes references to a watcher, an unidentified figure present before each disappearance." Musk's mind worked rapidly. "What if that's not just a description? What if it's a title?" Langley stiffened. "You think these watchers are behind it?" Musk exhaled. "Not just behind it, controlling it." Langley stepped back, rubbing the back of his neck. "So let's say these watchers are running this experiment. What's their goal? What are they testing?" Musk stared at the AI screen, his fingers tightening into fists. I think they're testing what happens when you remove key disruptors from history. Every person on these lists has changed the course of human civilization. Oppenheimer, Turing, Tesla, Jobs. Langley swallowed. So they're shaping human progress. Musk's eyes darkened. Or limiting it. A heavy silence filled the lab. If Musk was right, then the disappearances weren't accidents or anomalies. They were deliberate corrections. Musk clenched his jaw. 42 hours left. If he wanted to survive, he needed to find the Watchers. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure if he was ready for what he would find. Musk paced the lab, his mind a flurry of calculations and possibilities. 42 hours left. The weight of that number pressed against his chest like a ticking bomb. Langley stood by the console, staring at the screen where the AI had flagged the word Watcher as the only constant in every disappearance case. These Watchers, Musk murmured, they show up before every vanishing, but they're never documented. No names, no origins, no physical descriptions. He looked at Langley. You're telling me that in all these cases, no one has ever captured an image of one? Langley exhaled. We've tried. Security footage gets corrupted. Witnesses either forget details or give conflicting accounts. It's like these things don't want to be recorded. Musk frowned. Then we find another way. Langley studied him. What are you thinking? Musk tapped the AI console. The files follow a Fibonacci sequence. That means disappearances aren't random. They follow a pattern. If we can predict the next interval, we can determine the next target. Langley stiffened. You want to bait them? Musk smirked. Exactly. Langley crossed his arms. That's a hell of a risk. Musk met his gaze. I built rockets knowing they could explode on the launch pad. I drove Tesla at full speed with experimental autopilot software. Risk doesn't scare me. Being controlled does. Langley hesitated, then nodded. All right, let's find the next target. The AI processed Musk's request, running thousands of calculations per second. Finally, it displayed a series of dates, previous disappearances mapped out along the Fibonacci curve. Musk scanned the data. If this pattern holds, the next disappearance is due in 24 hours. Langley cursed. Who's the target? Musk scrolled through the data. The AI had flagged a name, Dr. Evelyn Carter. Musk arched an eyebrow. Never heard of her. Langley's expression changed. He pulled up a classified dossier. Dr. Carter is a theoretical physicist. She works on quantum time dilation and alternate reality theories. Some of her work is classified beyond even my level. Musk leaned in. She's pushing the boundaries of our understanding of reality. That fits the profile, Langley nodded. And if the Watchers have been pruning disruptive figures from history, she's exactly the kind of person they'd target next. Musk cracked his knuckles. Then we get to her before they do. Langley made a call, pulling strings to get them immediate clearance to reach Dr. Carter's research facility in New Mexico. A private jet was fueled and ready within an hour, and Musk wasted no time boarding. As they ascended into the night sky, Musk stared out the window, lost in thought. What if they were too late? What if Carter was already marked? Langley broke the silence. I still don't understand something. If the Watchers are controlling the disappearances, why leave a record at all? Why allow the files to exist? Musk frowned. I've been thinking about that, and I have two theories. Langley gestured for him to continue. The first theory is that the files are a warning. Maybe someone or something is trying to help us see the pattern. Musk exhaled. The second theory is worse. Langley leaned forward. How much worse? Musk's voice was grim. What if the files are a test? Langley narrowed his eyes. A test for what? Musk met his gaze. For who deserves to survive? Silence hung between them as the jet cut through the clouds. If that was true, then Musk wasn't just fighting for his own survival. He was fighting to prove that humanity was worthy of controlling its own fate. And if he failed, it wouldn't just be his disappearance on the line. Dr. Carter's lab, they landed at a private airstrip in the middle of the desert, immediately transferring to an unmarked SUV. The drive to Carter's facility took less than 20 minutes. A remote, nondescript building buried in the rocky landscape, surrounded by high-security fencing. Langley flashed his credentials, and the guards allowed them through without question. Inside, Dr. Evelyn Carter was waiting. She was a petite woman in her late 40s, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun. Her sharp green eyes studied them with equal parts suspicion and curiosity. "I don't get visitors often," she said, folding her arms. "Especially not from billionaires and government agents. So why the hell are you here?" Musk stepped forward. "Because your name is on a list, and if we don't stop it, you'll be gone by this time tomorrow." To their surprise, Carter didn't look entirely shocked. Instead, she let out a slow breath. "So it's happening again." Musk narrowed his eyes. "You knew?" Carter gave a tight smile. "Not exactly, but I've suspected something like this for a while." She gestured toward a wall covered in chalkboard equations. "My research focuses on quantum reality fluctuations, small, imperceptible shifts in the fabric of spacetime. But lately, I've been seeing anomalies." Langley frowned. "What kind of anomalies?" Carter turned to the board and circled a series of numbers. "I call them reality inconsistencies. They're tiny deviations in the expected behavior of the universe. They shouldn't exist, but they do, and they happen right before a major scientific breakthrough." Musk's blood ran cold. "Like someone is adjusting reality before we get too close to something big." Carter nodded. "Exactly." She pointed to a date and the latest anomaly. "It's happening right now." Langley's hand moved to his gun. "That means they're already here." Musk felt the hairs on his arms rise. Then, from somewhere outside the lab, the lights flickered, and a low, unearthly hum vibrated through the walls. Carter's voice was barely a whisper. "They found me." Musk's heart pounded. 39 hours left, and now the Watchers were coming. The lab plunged into darkness. The only illumination came from the glowing equations on Dr. Carter's chalkboard, casting eerie shadows across the walls. A deep, unnatural hum vibrated through the floor, like the air itself was warping. Musk's breath quickened. He had faced crises before, exploding rockets, near financial ruin, technological failures, but this was different. This was something beyond logic. Langley drew his gun, his movements calm and practiced. "We need to move now." Dr. Carter barely reacted. Instead, she turned to her desk, grabbing a thick notebook and flipping it open. "This is it," she murmured. "The anomaly I predicted is happening right on time." Musk stepped closer. "Explain fast." Carter didn't look up. "I've been tracking reality inconsistencies for years. Moments where space-time wobbles as if something is correcting it." She pointed to a section in her notes. "But what I found recently is even stranger. Whenever these corrections happen, they erase people from existence." Langley cursed under his breath. "That's exactly what we've been tracking." Musk frowned. "You mean the disappearances aren't physical? They're changes to reality itself?" Carter nodded. "I believe the Watchers aren't just removing people. They're rewriting history." The words sent a chill down Musk's spine. Langley tightened his grip on his gun. "If that's true, then we're not dealing with kidnappers. We're dealing with something that can manipulate time itself." A deep boom reverberated outside the lab, like a distant thunderclap. The hum in the air intensified. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. Musk looked at Carter. "How do we stop this?" She hesitated. "I don't think we can stop it, but we might be able to break it." Musk's mind raced. "Go on." She turned to her blackboard, quickly scrawling out a formula. "If we assume the Watchers are rewriting reality, then there must be a moment, a precise instant where the change actually takes effect." She circled a number. "If we disrupt that moment, we might be able to create a rift, a gap in their control." Musk leaned in. "You mean an escape route?" Carter nodded. "If we act fast enough." Langley glanced toward the entrance. The lab doors rattled violently, as if an unseen force was pressing against them. "We're running out of time." Musk grabbed a marker and added to Carter's equations. All right, if we assume they're using some form of quantum interference to rewrite events, then the key is to introduce chaotic variables. Carter's eyes widened. Yes, if we can introduce unpredictable elements, things the Watchers didn't account for, we might be able to delay or even disrupt their rewriting process. Langley's jaw tightened. How do we do that? Musk smirked. We break the pattern. Musk flipped through Carter's research, scanning the sequences. The Watchers operated on precision. Every disappearance followed a perfect Fibonacci sequence. If they wanted to disrupt the event, they needed to create disorder. Langley glanced at the door, where shadows moved in the flickering emergency lights. Hurry it up. Musk looked at Carter. How soon will the rewrite take effect? Carter checked her watch. If the pattern holds, within minutes. Musk exhaled sharply. Then we need chaos. He grabbed a nearby keyboard and began inputting random data into Carter's system. False signals, junk code, unpredictable algorithm shifts. Anything to throw off a precision-based rewrite. Carter caught on immediately, adding randomized quantum fluctuations to the data. This might work, she said breathlessly. Langley glanced at the door. The shadows were no longer just shadows. Figures, tall, distorted silhouettes, stood on the other side, pressing against the glass. A crack splintered through the reinforced window. Guys, Langley said, voice steady but urgent. We're out of time. Carter typed the final command. Now! Musk slammed the enter key. For a fraction of a second, reality shimmered. The hum in the air stuttered like a broken frequency struggling to stabilize. The shadows at the door twitched, their forms flickering. Then everything snapped back into place. The shadows were gone, the humming stopped, the door remained intact. Carter let out a shaky breath. Did it work? Musk glanced around. Everything looked the same, but something felt different. Langley holstered his gun. Either we stopped it, or we just pissed them off. Carter checked her watch. The rewrite window passed. If I was supposed to disappear, it didn't happen. Musk grinned. That's one way to win. But before they could celebrate, something else happened. The lab lights flickered again, and this time something spoke. A voice, mechanical, distorted, like a whisper running through radio static, filled the air. You were not meant to interfere. Musk's pulse spiked. Who are you? The voice pulsed through the room, emotionless yet ancient. We are the architects, the custodians of your timeline. Carter's eyes widened. The Watchers. Langley's hand hovered near his gun. Why are you doing this? The voice continued unfazed. Your kind was not meant to advance beyond the threshold. Those who do are corrected. Musk clenched his jaw. You mean erased? A pause. Yes. Carter's voice was barely a whisper. They are controlling evolution. Musk's mind raced. If these Watchers, architects, were pruning humanity's most innovative thinkers, then every major leap forward had been regulated. Every genius who pushed too far, too fast, had been removed. Musk stepped forward. Not this time. The voice hummed. It is inevitable. Musk gritted his teeth. No, it's not. He turned to Carter. How do we force the rift open wider? Carter's hands trembled as she pointed at the computer. We need more entropy, more unpredictability. Musk cracked his knuckles. Then let's break the universe. He began overloading the system with chaotic code, randomized numbers, unpredictable sequences, forcing as much noise as possible into the algorithmic structure of reality. The voice glitched. Stop! The room shook. The air rippled. Langley shouted. What the hell is happening? Carter's eyes were wide with terror. We're destabilizing their hold. Musk kept typing. Good. The Watchers had controlled reality for long enough. It was time for humanity to take it back. 37 hours left, and now the war had begun. The lab was a war zone of flickering screens, distorted shadows, and static-laced whispers bleeding through the air. Reality itself trembled at the seams as Musk continued inputting randomized quantum noise into Carter's system, his fingers moving with manic urgency. 37 hours left. Langley had his gun trained on the shadows, but the truth was, bullets wouldn't stop what they were facing. They weren't fighting a person. They were fighting something woven into the fabric of reality itself. Carter's hands shook as she adjusted the algorithm. "The rift is opening," she gasped. "We're disrupting their system, forcing instability in their control over time." A deep, bone-rattling vibration tore through the room. The lab blinked. 1 second, everything was as it had been. The next, it was like the universe had skipped a frame in a corrupted video file. The walls flickered, shifting between states. Solid, liquid, something impossible. Then they appeared. The Watchers, no longer just vague shadows behind the door, no longer merely distortions in the periphery. They stepped into existence, and they were wrong. Their forms weren't solid nor fluid. They existed in fragments, shifting, overlapping versions of themselves, as if they were being seen through a fractured lens of time. Each movement trailed an afterimage of what they had been a second ago and a second from now. Musk stared, unable to look away. They weren't human. They weren't even organic. Their outlines shimmered like living data, their presence pressing against his mind with an impossible weight. "You have gone too far." The voice, many voices, layered on top of one another, echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Langley's grip on his weapon tightened. "What the hell are they?" Carter's breath was ragged. "Entities existing outside of our concept of time. They don't move through reality. They move around it." Musk squared his shoulders. "Good. That means they can bleed." One of the Watchers flickered, its head tilting as if amused. "Your defiance was not anticipated." Musk smirked. "Then you should have been smarter." The rift, a shimmering tear in reality, pulsed behind them. Musk could feel it in his bones, a way out, a way to break their hold. But the Watchers weren't going to let them reach it. The tallest of them stepped forward, its voice vibrating through their skulls. "You do not understand." Musk narrowed his eyes. "Then explain." A pause. "Humanity was never meant to breach the threshold." Carter sucked in a sharp breath. "Threshold? Your kind was designed with limits." Musk's blood ran cold. "Designed?" The Watchers' forms flickered. "You were shaped for survival, contained, corrected when necessary. Progress must be controlled." Langley exhaled through gritted teeth. "They're gatekeepers." Carter stepped forward, trembling but defiant. "You're saying humans are what? A controlled species? A project?" The Watchers did not confirm, but they didn't deny it either. Musk clenched his fists. "And what happens when we step outside the limits you set?" The air vibrated. The Watchers shifted. "Then you cease to be." Silence fell, and Musk laughed. Not out of fear, not out of madness, but out of understanding. "You're scared," he said, voice quiet but sharp. "You've been controlling humanity like a game board, pruning people like Oppenheimer, Tesla, Jobs. Anyone who gets too close to figuring out the truth." His grin was wild now. "But you didn't expect someone like me." The rift behind them pulsed, destabilizing further. Their window was closing. Musk turned to Carter. "What's on the other side of that thing?" Carter's hands trembled as she calculated, scanning her equations. "If my theory is right, the original timeline, the one before they started altering it." Langley's eyes widened. "You mean the world as it was supposed to be?" Carter nodded. "Before the Watchers manipulated it." Musk turned back to the entities. "Then we stepped through." The Watchers moved. Carter shouted as the air rippled around them, a force pulling at their bodies, trying to drag them away. "You will not cross." Musk fought against the pull, eyes locked on the shifting doorway. "I think we will." The Watchers lunged, but it was too late. They fell into the rift. Musk hit the ground hard, his vision blurred, his body aching from the impact. The air smelled different, cleaner, unaltered. Carter groaned beside him, pushing herself up. Langley swore under his breath. They were in a city, not Washington, D.C., not anywhere Musk recognized. The buildings were strange, their designs both familiar and alien. Vehicles hovered without wheels, gliding smoothly along unseen paths. Screens displayed unknown languages, yet felt understandable. Musk pushed himself up, his pulse pounding. "What is this place?" Langley murmured. "The real world." Musk turned, staring up at a massive tower, one unlike anything that should exist in their timeline. It wasn't their timeline. They had stepped into a world where the Watchers had never interfered. And now Musk knew the truth. The Watchers weren't just managing human evolution. They had stolen it. Carter turned to Musk, voice shaking. "If we made it here, that means reality isn't set." Musk grinned. "Exactly. And that meant they could fight back." 36 hours left. The real war had just begun. Musk stood in the middle of the unfamiliar city, his heart pounding in his chest. The skyline before him was a paradox, a vision of what humanity should have achieved. Buildings of shimmering metal and glass floated, defying conventional physics. Roads pulsed with a strange energy, directing vehicles that glided through the air in perfect, unrestricted harmony. This was not the world he had come from. This was humanity unshackled. Carter was already scribbling calculations on a page torn from her notebook, her breath coming in sharp bursts. Langley stood beside her, scanning their surroundings with wary eyes, his hand resting near his holstered gun. A habit, even if bullets wouldn't help them here. Musk turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "We did it." Carter barely glanced up. "We broke through." Langley's jaw tightened. "Yeah. Then where the hell are we?" Musk met his gaze. Somewhere the Watchers didn't touch. The realization settled over them. If this was the world before the Watchers had altered history, then the people here, the ones who had been allowed to advance naturally, had achieved levels of progress far beyond what Musk's world had been permitted to reach. But there was something wrong. The city was empty, no crowds, no noise, no people. Carter looked up from her calculations, frowning. "Where is everyone?" A chill ran down Musk's spine. He had expected a thriving, advanced civilization, but instead, this place was a ghost town. Langley stepped forward, his eyes scanning the streets. "We need to move. If the Watchers are real, they know we're here." Musk nodded. "Then let's find out what happened before they do." The trio moved cautiously through the abandoned city, their footsteps echoing unnaturally against the smooth streets. The eerie silence pressed in on them like an invisible force. Carter stopped beside what looked like a holographic information hub, her fingers hovering over the shimmering display. "If this place runs on any kind of stored data, I might be able to pull records of what happened here." Musk watched as she interfaced with the system, her hands moving over the glowing surface with practiced ease. The machine whirred softly, then flickered as if waking from a long slumber. Lines of text in an unknown language scrolled across the screen, rearranging themselves rapidly until translating. Then, in clear English, a simple message appeared. "The last human departed year 5821 AD. Carter inhaled sharply. "This isn't just a parallel timeline. We're in the far future." Musk exhaled, his mind working through the implications. The Watchers had manipulated his world to keep humanity's progress in check. But here, where they hadn't intervened, mankind had advanced beyond their control, and then they were gone. Langley's voice was rough. "So what the hell happened to them?" Carter scrolled through the data logs, her eyes widening with each line of text. Finally, she whispered, "They left." Musk blinked. "Left?" Carter swallowed hard. They advanced too fast, too far. And when they reached a certain level of understanding, they ascended, they abandoned physical existence entirely. Musk felt a cold weight settle in his gut. That's what the Watchers were afraid of. Carter met his gaze, her face pale. "They weren't stopping us for control. They were stopping us because they feared what we'd become." Langley exhaled slowly. "Then we just broke the biggest rule in the universe." Musk smirked. "Wouldn't be the first time." But the moment of dark humor was short-lived. The sky shuddered. A pulse of unseen energy rippled through the air. Buildings flickered, momentarily transparent, as if struggling to exist. Carter's voice was urgent. They're trying to erase this place. They know we've seen it. Musk turned sharply. Then we find a way to bring it back with us. Langley gave him a sharp look. You want to bring this back to our world? Musk nodded. If we return without proof, we lose. The Watchers keep control. But if we show the world what we could have been, Carter finished for him, we could break their hold over everything. Langley sighed. You realize they're never going to let us leave, right? Musk smirked again. Then we make them. The world around them was coming apart. The Watchers' influence was leaking into this forgotten timeline, their presence warping the fabric of space itself. And then they arrived. They did not walk or move. They manifested, stepping through the cracks in reality like ghosts, forcing themselves into existence. One of them, taller, more defined than before, spoke. You were not meant to see this. Musk met its gaze, defiant. Then maybe you should have hidden it better. The Watcher's form rippled. You misunderstand. This place exists outside of your reality. It is no longer meant to be. Carter grabbed Musk's arm. If they collapse this timeline, we'll be trapped in a void. Musk's mind raced. We need an anchor. Something to pull us back. Langley glanced at the holographic system. The data logs. If we upload them into the rift, they might force a collision with our timeline. Musk grinned. Then let's crash the system. Carter worked furiously, pulling every scrap of historical data into a compressed file. The system groaned under the weight of thousands of years of knowledge. The Watchers moved. This will not be permitted. Musk spun, his pulse hammering. You don't get to decide anymore. The rift was flickering, trying to close, trying to cut them off before they could escape. Musk grabbed the console. Now! Carter hit execute. A blast of energy surged outward. The entire city trembled, its existence crashing into the fabric of Musk's reality. The Watchers howled, their forms distorted, trapped between two collapsing worlds. And then the world broke. Musk's lungs burned as he gasped for air. He wasn't sure how long he had been unconscious, but when he opened his eyes, he was back in Washington, D.C., the real world. Langley was next to him, coughing as he pulled himself upright. Carter groaned, blinking rapidly. Musk looked around. They were in the same government facility. The lab was intact. The computers were on, and on the screen, data uploaded 100%. Musk let out a ragged laugh. We did it. Carter was staring at the monitor in awe. It's all here. The entire forgotten history of humanity. Langley wiped sweat from his brow. So what now? Musk pushed himself up, his grin widening. Now, he exhaled. We tell the world the truth. 35 hours left. And the revolution had just begun. Musk sat at the center of a storm. Not a literal storm, though his body still felt like it had been torn through one, but the kind of storm that reshapes history. The files had been uploaded. The entire forgotten history of humanity was now sitting on the most secure and powerful servers on Earth, servers Musk himself had designed. The world that had never been allowed to exist was now mapped out in raw data, waiting for the world to see it. But time was running out. Langley's watch beeped. 34 hours left. Musk took a breath. All right, first step. We make this public. Langley shook his head. We can't just dump this on the internet. If the Watchers still have control, they'll wipe every trace before it spreads. Carter nodded, still staring at the screen. And if they can rewrite reality, they might be able to erase us before we even try. Musk smirked. Then we force a paradox. Langley narrowed his eyes. You want to make it so big they can't erase it? Musk nodded. If information is observed by enough people, it becomes impossible to fully erase. You can alter memories, delete files, but you can't erase something that millions of people are actively watching in real time. Carter leaned forward. Like a quantum observation paradox? Langley folded his arms. Which means we need to get this on every screen everywhere at once. Musk stood. And I know exactly how to do it. Over the next 2 hours, Musk worked at breakneck speed, using his highest level security clearances, backdoor access codes, and encrypted protocols to override global broadcasting networks, TV, social media, news sites, even classified government communications channels. He wasn't hacking into them, he was taking them over. The screen in front of him flickered as the final commands executed. A countdown appeared. 5 minutes until global broadcast. Carter wiped sweat from her brow. This is insane.
Musk grinned.
I know. Langley checked his weapon, an old habit. What happens when the watchers realize what we're doing? Musk's grin faded. They'll try to stop us. And right on cue, the lights flickered. The hum returned. That sickening low-frequency vibration that wasn't just sound. Reality itself was shifting. The watchers were coming. The air in the room rippled. The walls shivered, twisting in ways that weren't possible under the laws of physics. And then they arrived, 3 of them tall, towering. Their forms still shifting like they existed in multiple points in time simultaneously. Their voices layered over each other, like a choir from the depths of the universe. This must not continue. Musk crossed his arms. Sorry, too late. The broadcast timer ticked down, 4 minutes. One of the watchers stepped forward, its voice colder than death itself. You are violating the order. Musk tilted his head. Then maybe your order was broken to begin with. The watcher flickered. You do not comprehend what you are doing. Musk took a step forward, defiant. I understand exactly what I'm doing. He gestured at the data streaming across the screens. You've been controlling humanity's progress, editing history, culling the disruptors before they push too far. And now, the whole world is about to see the truth. 3 minutes. The watchers shifted their forms, vibrating faster. If you continue, humanity will destroy itself. Carter gasped softly. That's what this is about. Langley frowned. They're afraid of us. Musk exhaled sharply. That was it. The watchers weren't protecting themselves. They were protecting us from ourselves. Your kind is unstable. You create weapons before wisdom, power before restraint. Left unchecked, you will collapse into ruin. Musk met their gaze. And yet here we are, still fighting. 2 minutes. The watchers flickered, distressed. The timeline was diverging too far from what they had written. Musk stepped closer. Maybe you're right. Maybe we are unstable. But you know what else we are? He held their gaze. Innovators. Dreamers. Survivors. The watchers remained silent. 1 minute. Musk smirked. And guess what? We don't need your protection. The watchers trembled, their forms destabilized. The world was shifting away from them because Musk had broken their control. 30 seconds. The hum peaked. Reality itself was being torn apart as the watchers fought to regain dominance. But it was too late. 10 seconds. Musk turned to the screen. Showtime. 3, 2, 1. Transmission live across the entire world. Every screen, every broadcast, every device flashed with the truth. The forgotten history of humanity, the evidence of the watchers' interference, the proof that the greatest minds of history had been erased before they could take civilization to the next level. The world saw, the world knew, and with that knowledge, the watchers lost control. They screamed, a soundless, mind-shattering wail. As reality twisted against them, they flickered, they glitched, and then they were gone. Musk sat on the floor, breathing hard. The hum was gone. The air felt lighter. Langley rubbed his face. Did we just win? Carter was shaking, but she nodded. I think so. Musk exhaled. Not just win. He stood, looking at the screens filled with real-time reactions. We changed everything. The world had awoken. And with the watchers gone, the future was free. Carter stared at Musk, wonder in her eyes. You rewrote reality. Musk smirked. Told you, I don't play by the rules. Time left. Midnight. The countdown was over, but the real future was just beginning.